Like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly, he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No.
Brilliant. J.D. Vance absolutely killing it in this interview with on CBS with Margaret Brennan. That's the kind of thing that conservatives, so-called conservatives and Republicans should have been saying for decades. But this gets even better. It gets even better because J.D. Vance really laid down the law in this interview. Let's get into it. We're on the Megyn Kelly show today, and as you can see, she has Steve Bannon as her guest. So let's get into it and enjoy this interview with Vice President J.D. Vance on the Megyn Kelly show.
To go on with Margaret Brennan, because some people said, why is he going to CBS? It's the enemy. Look what they did to him in the vice presidential debate. And I thought, no, he's very smart because she's adversarial. She's going to try to punch him, but she's nowhere near his intellectual equal. So he knows he can just slice and dice her with ease and do it as behaving as a gentleman, but leave everybody with the same impression, which is she is no match for him. Her arguments are no match for his. Here's SOT 13.
There are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals
but there are
have been properly
30,000
vetted.
people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary concern as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that we know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These people
it's
are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly, he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
Oh, brilliant. That is going to be, that's going to become a meme, like the meme for this presidency. Or maybe there will be better ones. I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want this guy in my country. Absolutely brilliant. That was, Jesus, I can't even, my chef's kiss to J.D. Vance there. Yeah. I have been saying the same thing. I'm sure many, many other people have been saying the same thing for years. What Western country, like, Western Europe, where I live in Belgium, what Western country, or what country in the West, so that includes the Western Europe, like the European countries, the Anglosphere countries like the United States, Canada, Australia, etc., of what possible use could importing thousands and millions of people from the third world be to the West? Zero. There is absolutely no reason at all to import these people. They don't belong in European countries. And when I say European countries, I mean the West. Europe proper and countries founded by Europeans, like the Anglosphere countries. There is, and if I'm not saying there's no good people or no brilliant people in non-European countries, far from it, but if they are there, if there are brilliant Indians, like Vivek Ramaswamy says, well, then they can stay in India and, pull India out of its shithole status. Because I'm sorry, most of India is a massive shithole. Same with all the other countries. We shouldn't be stealing talented people from, the third world or the global south or whatever they're calling it these days. They should be staying in their countries and making those countries better. It's immoral of us to take their people, and they don't belong in Europe. They belong in their own countries. Just like it would be immoral to flood Japan with Europeans, or flood India with Europeans, or flood Nigeria with Europeans, or whatever. Yeah, it's common sense. And to hear J.D. Vance say what he just said to Margaret, I don't really care, Margaret, that was fantastic.
Right on. I don't really care, Margaret. He's right.
Well, he does it like he does it such a gentleman. I mean, and finally the exasperation when they're just going to continue on and continue on and continue on, all of them. And I think this is why they've lost the backing of the American people. It's why the ratings are a disaster. Why the cost of these things they're going through and cutting everybody's salary. The salaries are outrageous in the first place. Cutting salaries. You see right there in JD. He makes an argument, puts the facts out. It just continues on, continues on. I mean, it's not a interview. It's a debate. Right. And finally, he just says, look, I don't care and the American people don't care. Next question, which I think is great.
Yeah, I don't care and the American people don't care. Brilliant. That's what all of us should be saying. If anybody, like in our family, of course, I can't debate politics at all with my family because they are all inveterate liberals. And, we've kind of agreed not to discuss these things. But anyone who brings it up to me, I'll just say, I don't care, Yeah, they don't belong here. I don't care. Get over it. Next question.
Who cares? Like, if this guy who he was referencing, his name is 27-year-old Nasir Ahmad Tahedi. And
typical American.
Per court documents, he planned to liquidate his assets, repatriate his family to Afghanistan, purchase assault rifles, and stage a violent attack on Election Day. He entered the U.S. on a special immigrant visa on September 9th, 2021, days after Biden's catastrophic U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Who that had a family member die in this planned violent attack on Election Day would care when he was radicalized? Why was he here? It wasn't lawful. He needed to go. He wasn't vetted. That's the point that he was making. And
that was the first point. But the second point is, frankly, I don't care if he's vetted or not. Why should we even be vetting Afghanis? No offense against Afghanis, but they can stay in Afghanistan and make their country better. No offense against whoever, but we shouldn't even be vetting them. It's just like we shouldn't be opening the southern border to immigrant caravans who call themselves refugees and asylum seekers. We know they're not. If they were, then they would just stay in Mexico or one of the other countries they pass through, which is what you're supposed to do if you're a refugee or asylum seeker. You stay in the first safe country. But they're not. They just want to come to America. I can understand that. No problem. Nothing against that. But we don't have to take them. So we shouldn't even be letting them in to check if they have a claim. No. I just don't care. Not our problem.
You times that by 20 million. So here's another piece, because the birthright citizenship has made has ruffled a lot of feathers, even on the Republican side, because Trump, notwithstanding what's written in the Constitution, is saying he's getting rid of it. And there is a legal argument to be made there. Trust me, I researched it in depth before I sat with Trump in September of 23, because I went into it saying this is a preposterous proposal. It's in the Constitution. You can't withdraw it. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized very smart legal scholars actually have made the credible argument that the Constitution is not as clear as its defenders argue, and you can get rid of birthright citizenship. It's because of this clause that means you have to be born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And there's a question there. Anyway, the media will not allow for any of that possibility, nuance, or other legal arguments. Margaret Brennan brought that up too with J.D. Vance, and here's how that went.
Temporary residents, people who come in here, whether legally or illegally, and don't plan to stay, their children should become American citizens. I don't know any country that does that or why we would be different.
Well, this is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country founded by... This is a very unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers, but just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world.
By the way, it wasn't founded by illegal immigrants, and we don't...
God, I hate this argument. No, it was not. The United States was not founded by immigrants. It was founded by settlers. Yeah. The lands were settled as, if I remember from grade school. It's a very long time ago for me. I did go to grade school and high school in the United States. Settlers came over, literal, settlers to a wild land. And, they built it up. But all the people who came over before the Revolutionary War, they weren't all settlers. Towns started being built in cities and states or colonies. So, even people who came later, say like Thomas Jefferson or George Washington, whenever he came, or, whenever his parents came, wouldn't have been direct settlers cutting trees down into woods, into forests just to make somewhere to live. But they were very much into settler mindset. They were not immigrants in any sense of the word, not at all like immigrants today. And even the big waves of immigrants in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they came under a completely different proposition. They were leaving everything behind and going all in on the United States, and the United States invited them. They said, okay, we need a bunch of people to do this. The United States had a project for moving outwards, moving westwards. And, and it turned on the tap, and then it turned off the tap when it wanted to. And all those people from Europe, with one or two exceptions, like the Chinese who came to build the railroad in the West. So America's immigration policy was very sound. It made sense. That all changed in 1965. You can do some research into that if you want to find out who was responsible for that. Anyway, we're not a nation of immigrants. Yes, immigrants came much later. And today's immigrants are not even anything like the immigrants, who came in the late 19th, early 20th century, not even remotely the same, and have nothing to do with the settlers.
I want to keep the door open to more and more criminals because of what happened 250 years ago, Steve. It's amazing. Is that stupidity on her part or just liberal bias?
I think it's just laziness. I think they've controlled the apparatus for so long. I mean, you see this, these people, they've gotten lazy. That's one of the reasons they were caught by surprise on 5 November. One of the reasons that MSNBC's ratings dropped by 2/3 is that they lied to their audience. Their problem is credibility with their audience. Half of that audience is never coming back because they felt they were lied to all the way up until Pennsylvania was called. And even that night on the broadcast, 'cause I've gone back and studied the arc of the broadcast, they lied to their people. They all thought Kamala Harris, it was a historic night, Kamala Harris, that's where they had the huge crowd at Howard University. These people lied to people. And then later said, well, we actually knew the polling wasn't that great toward the end. They outright lie, and they will lie because they control every institution. They control the institutional power in the country, and they got very lazy. They never thought a startup group like MAGA, these kind of populist nationalists with no money and really no institutional power could get in back of someone like President Trump, is the reason they treated Trump so badly. Remember the felonies that he was charged with just on insurrection and J6 left him in prison for 300 years. They wanted him to die in prison. Until you embrace that fact that they wanted him to die in prison, a man that look what's happened in the last 7 days. I mean, when he went to Notre Dame Cathedral, he looked like Charlemagne walking in there. He is now on the world stage as the most powerful individual and really driving all the action, right, of everything the American government's doing in every different aspect, like 30 different verticals simultaneously. He's the most powerful, president, I think, for even more so than Reagan. I think you got to go back to FDR, and I put him in the category with General Washington and actual Abraham Lincoln as the age of Trump and what he's doing here. They wanted him to die in prison. Until you understand that, they never thought we were coming back. That's why, Jay Monahan could lie at Davos on the stage, says, well, we never debanked anybody. I go, what are you talking about? We were all...
Yeah, I think that Steve Bannon makes some good points. I personally think that if Donald Trump keeps up the momentum he has going right now, it's currently we're in the middle of the second week of his second term here. The second week, he has been on fire since day one of his second term. If he keeps this up, the momentum he's got going now, he will absolutely go down in history as one of the all-time best American presidents. I am convinced, 100% convinced. No hyperbole. If he keeps it up, we'll see. But so far, wow. Just amazing. And I saw, where did I see on another video? Somebody mentioned a tweet they found on Twitter, on X. Somebody wrote, Donald Trump is acting like someone who has been shot at, been tried and found guilty of multiple felonies, been attacked from all sides for years, and has zero fucks left to give. And yeah, that's absolutely how he has been acting so far since the beginning of this second term. So let me know what you think about this, about J.D. Vance's performance, about Donald Trump's first days in for the first day, the initial days, the initial week or two of his second term. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say in the comments. I've been reading all the comments recently and replying to quite a few. In the meantime, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.